Hello and welcome to MINYIP Fantasy Sports Community. My name is Blake and I'm joined by Clinton. How are you, Clinton?
Good, thank you, Blake. It's great to be here. It's been a long time coming since last week. We put something out there to start off with, and we tried to record last night, but it didn't quite go our way. So we're learning on the job, and hopefully week by week we can get this better every single week, Blake.
Yeah, that's it. We'll slowly just improve week by week, so it'll be good. I reckon we just get straight into it, Clinton. No stuffing around.
No stuff around, Blake.
Yeah, that's it. We'll get straight into the results from last week. Did you see the Arsenal game, Clinton, being an Arsenal supporter?
Well, as you know, Blake, that game was very early. So everyone has their different routines of how they watch the games with our time zone. So no, with the 5 a.m. start, I can't help myself. So when I wake up in the morning, I immediately check the scores. I'm not a person who just switches off my phone and then watches the replay. I just need to know the result as soon as I wake up. And as soon as I saw Brentford 2, Arsenal 0, I do not watch any of the game. So I'll do that the next night as well. So I think I just choose what highlights I want to watch, and when I see Arsenal lose, I force myself not to watch any highlights.
It's probably a wise decision. I wouldn't recommend watching the replay if I was an Arsenal supporter.
Yes.
Obviously, it didn't help. Obviously, it didn't help having the 2 key strikers out, but they're quite ordinary at the back as well. So yes.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next game. We won't dwell on that too long for you. Man United, they cut open Leeds through the midfield, and it was a Bruno show. He scored 3 and Pogba assisted 4. The Leeds defence looked quite ordinary. Man United just chopped through them. Did you see that one?
Well, I'm not sure if we need to go through game by game, but what I will say is that after Arsenal lost in the first night, obviously that was a very poor way to start the season. Then from a fantasy point of view, we'll get to our team shortly, but I chose not to have Fernandes and Shaw. And watching that game, because I did watch it, it's fantasy torture, I'd say, when you sort of choose to not select a big hitter and he decides to score 3 goals. Immediately, I think this is going to be a very, very long season. And then not to mention that the midnight games, once the midnight game started, I also had Sanchez in goal, who got 6, they let in a goal literally 2 minutes in the game, I think it was. So just the start of the fantasy campaign was torture. And the idea of fantasy, enjoy it. It wasn't a great start, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it was a good week for a lot of fantasy coaches, and especially some of the people in our league. But for us, it probably wasn't the greatest starts, as our rankings reflect, and as we'll go through in a minute, our teams of what happened. But it was a good week for a lot of managers. But seeing Bruno score those goals was torturous. We won't go through all the games, obviously.
I thoroughly enjoyed the Newcastle West Ham game, obviously high scoring. And I think the overall thing is, obviously being here in Australia, no crowds at sport and so on, but to see the EPL back, to see the crowds in the stadiums, albeit the other side of the world, it was great to see. And even despite the result of, for example, Spurs and Man City, I was heavily invested in City to perform well, but even just being a home game for Spurs and seeing the crowd reaction, it was awesome. So great that it's back, and looking forward to seeing, for example, Liverpool play at home this week. So and Arsenal for that matter, but just the crowds was awesome to see again.
Absolutely, probably the 2 main upsets for the round were Spurs beating Man City with no Harry Kane playing in either side, And Watford beating Villa was probably the only other real upset from the round, I'd say.
Yeah, some good results. We'll go into our teams and scores and so on. So, yeah, that was a good first game week, and looking forward to seeing some more football this weekend.
Yeah. As mentioned, we'll touch on the top scores for the round for a start. Obviously, Bruno's at the top there, getting the full bonus points, 3 goals. He's in 56% of teams as of yesterday. And his price has already gone up as well. I don't really want to talk about Bruno too much.
It's hard to ignore.
Yeah, and especially if you're captained him, you're off to a great start. I think we both captained Salah with 17 points, so that's why most people had a good first round, because they had either Bruno or Salah or both. So that's what got people off to a great start. Pogba got 4 out of the 5 assists for Man United. Yeah. And probably a few of the lesser selected players, Alonso and Chalobah for Chelsea. I think
just with Chelsea's defense, they're so we'll go through some teams about how unpredictable their lineups are, and Chelsea's whole team is pretty unpredictable, and their defense, as you can see, those boys scoring really well, but not in a lot of teams. So it's going to be one of those ones where if you do try and chase those points, you might be let down pretty soon. So
yeah, we'll touch on the transfers in later. They're not really up there in the transfers in, so people know that they're going to be in and out of that Chelsea lineup. So out of those 5 players there, I think we both only had Mo Salah. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So not the greatest of starts, but we'll only get better from here. Next, we will slide across to our low scores of the round. So do you want to explain what we mean by the low scores, Clinton?
Yeah, so the first page you showed was the top scorers, which is easy to work out with. This page is more the highly owned players, which scored lowly. So I think we've done this by percentage selected in teams and picked out those low scores. So obviously Shaw is in over half of the teams, and with Luke Ayling deciding to kick in a ripper of a goal, he unfortunately lost his clean sheet, but then also got yellow carded, so he scored 1. So it's one of those lucky ones, I think, if you didn't have Luke Shaw, that they actually conceded. Martinez for Aston Villa, just the 2 there. Tony, which is cheap forward, which a lot of people have selected, although didn't score. Apparently, from what I've heard, is because I didn't watch the replay, he was one of the best players on the pitch. So fully expect, hopefully, he'll score soon. Man City defense, which I mentioned already. So Diaz, they conceded, and Sanchez, which is, although he's only selected by 24% of teams, a lot of the teams I'm seeing has Sanchez in goal. So Brighton and Sanchez are being heavily invested to score some clean sheets. So there's some of the highly owned players who let down a few fantasy managers.
Yeah. Do you have Tony in your side?
I do, yes. I have 4 of those 5. So hopefully those boys can redeem themselves this week.
Yeah, I have 3 out of the 5 as well. If from what I saw from Shaw and Tony, I wouldn't be too concerned about them going forward. They both look dangerous. Even Shaw was providing a lot of opportunities. He was probably unlucky in a way to not get more points or the clean sheet. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I had Shaw.
Very good. What's the next slide there, Blake?
We're going to go across to see how I fared in the first round. Probably don't want to touch on this for too long. But yeah, I had Sanchez in goal, obviously conceded in about the first 2 minutes at midnight. So that was fun watching. I invested in 2 Chelsea players, which were the wrong 2 Chelsea players. I had Chilwell and Havertz, and Chilwell didn't play any minutes, so he got benched, which gave me White's score of 1 point, which was devastating. And I had Havertz come on for 10 minutes at the end of the Chelsea game and get me 1 point. So if Havertz had stayed off the pitch, I would have got Dallas' score of 5. So that was really frustrating to watch him come on in the last 10 minutes and do nothing. My highlights for the round were Salah as captain. Vardy scored an absolutely sensational goal. Liverpool keeping a clean sheet was very good, but probably expected with a highly owned player. And I had Sarr, which was a bit of a differential. He got the bonus points and he looked dangerous around the goal as well. Do you have any questions about my team at all?
No, not so much questions. I think Sarr and Vardy were really good choices. Unfortunately, yeah, as you mentioned with the Chelsea players, that, as I said earlier, I think their lineup, Man City have been a powerhouse for years. I think Chelsea are nearly caught up to them in terms of their depth. So it's going to be unpredictable to work out their best team week by week. So Chilwell, I think, yeah, coming back from the Euros, and maybe they're just easing him back. And Havertz, the big unknown with him now is that Lukaku will be potentially playing this week, and how they structure up forward is going to be obviously a bit different to last year when Havertz had a good second half of the year. So a bit of question marks for the Chelsea players, but you've got a strong team there, and obviously once you pick your team at the start of the year, you don't pick them just for the first week. It's about the first few fixtures. So hopefully, for your sake, a few of those players can score better this week.
Yeah, Maddison went off injured about midway through the game. But St. Maximin looked good. Early on, he created an absolutely sensational assist into the box for Wilson to score. Throughout the second half, I thought he played pretty high up the pitch, and he didn't get that close to the goal, but he was still providing a lot of opportunities, so I was happy with that selection as well. Another concern in my backline was Lucas Dean for Everton. They could struggle.
Yeah, I think they'll improve. They're obviously a new manager, and I think he's got the ability to score assists and score from set piece opportunities. So I think he'll be a solid selection. It's just, maybe it's just slow start for Everton. We'll see.
Yeah, so I had 71 points to start off, and we flicked across to your side where you scored 95, including your bench boost. So if you want to explain the highlights and your sort of disappointments from the team.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I had to explain my team, is that from last week when we filmed on Thursday nights, I had my bench boost. I mentioned I was going to bench boost, and from that point onwards, it was like I was set on doing that. So when I was structuring my team and fiddling around, I was just sold. I was going to do it. So and then on the Friday night, obviously night before the first game, and obviously the news filtered through that potentially Amati might not start for Leicester, and then also the news broke about the Arsenal strikers not playing, and that just led me into a huge reaction of fiddling around with my team. And actually, if I had left it, I would have scored 96. But going into this week now, I'm happier with the team that looks on paper now compared to what it was as I presented last week. So there's a few factors which let my scoring down. The first one, I wanted to try and get a piece of the Arsenal attack once those guys weren't playing, and I thought that Smith Rowe was a chance to score against Brentford, so I was keen on getting him in, and then I was juggling my team. Someone had to be making way to spread the funds out, and I had Mahrez and Son in my team last week, and then I decided of the two, I was actually going to ditch Son, although I really wanted to keep him to even up my team, I decided to get rid of Sun. So that's led in a chain reaction of spending money elsewhere and so on. So what I did, because I was ultimately choosing Mahrez over Sun, I decided to go a bit more all in on Man City, which then led me to get Diaz and Cancelo. And obviously, as I said, it didn't pay off this round. And I think, Son scored a great goal. If he didn't score that, obviously there's an easy couple of clean sheets there for my team. So, as I said, the other big factor is I'm sort of hell bent or already conceded the fact that I might wildcard after the third game week when there's an international break. So that was my thinking. So I want to attack the first 3 game weeks, and Man City have great fixtures coming up this week and next. So I want to go hard on Man City. Obviously, Salah did the business. So without Liverpool and West Ham, who I'll mention in a second, without those players, my scoring looks pretty low. And Barnes is a pick which hasn't paid off after one, but I think this week it's obviously a tough matchup versus West Ham. But I think if he can redeem himself, and then he has a good fixture in game week 3, so I'm happy with that selection. And up forward, Ings scored very late, which was fortunate. Already mentioned Tony, who looked good but didn't score. So I'm happy with my team. And although there's a lot of people who scored over 100 points, if ultimately you judge your bench boost by your lowest scores. So obviously Veltman was a laid out for some COVID reason. So my bench boost scored me pretty much 6 points, I believe. So in some way, 95, looks okay. But at the same point, I've already got rid of the bench boost. But it sort of makes me feel like I'm part of the pack. And then if the players can score well this week, I can potentially be high up the rankings than otherwise. So happy with the team. Sanchez was a pick which I was sort of the one that picked. I just went with the crowd a little bit. Shaw, Fernandez, and Son were the 3 picks that I was really worried about. So I was happy that in some way that Man United conceded. Devastated to see Fernandez score a hat-trick, and then to see Son score the winner against Man City was also another dagger. So overall, can't complain, and I'm looking forward to this week so they can I can judge this team over the first 3 game weeks, not just the first one.
Yeah, Simicast was obviously a good selection, only priced at 4. And Barnes, I thought, was probably in a way unlucky to not score more as well. They were playing through him a lot. And if he had there's a few opportunities there where he should have crossed the ball into Vardy, which I was angrily tweeting about. He should have probably scored at least an assist in that game as well. But yeah.
I'll just add one more thing. Just if I hadn't, as I said about the bench boost, once I decided to do that, I think the team took a different shape. And if I didn't, for example, I definitely would not have had Ben Rama in my team. I would have had potentially really cheap bench, probably Son, Mahrez, and Barnes as a midfield group. So the team took a different shape once I sort of had set in my mind I was going to bench boost. So that's how, whether or not that'll be a good or bad thing, I think we'll judge that after the first 3 game weeks. But Ben Rama was a pick that went in late just as a good balance to my team, and he obviously scored really well, and might be a little blessing in disguise that he's in my team. So there's pros and cons to what I decided, and we'll see how it all unfolds in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll touch on what we're going to do for this game week shortly. Obviously, you've got Veltman there who didn't play last round, so we'll discuss that shortly, what you're going to do for this round. We'll go through quickly how our league performed. So we've got 33 people in the league at the moment. There's still opportunities to join our league. So our league code's up on the screen now. And leading the pack is our mate Scott, scoring a massive 115 points. I know he also had a double West Ham, so he had Ben Rama and Antonio. I was chatting to him throughout that game, and he was very excited. So he scored 115. You're sitting fourth there, Clinton, with 95 points. So did quite well in our league. But I think a lot of the points, a lot of the players in our league are between you and I, between that 71 to 95. So we've got a good average there. Also, shout out to our mate Mitch Cleary, who's currently sitting 8th in our league. He discussed our league on the AFL Exchange podcast on Thursday morning. So we appreciate that from our mate Mitch, who's sitting 8th in our league. So hopefully he can push into the top 5 shortly, and he'll get a bigger mention next week when he's in that top 5. We've also got my mate James is 5th. His team name is Mystery Men. Don't know why he's selected that, but obviously he's gone all right off the advice from our show last week. We've got Keegan in 3rd and Marwin in 2nd. So hopefully some players in our league can score well this week.
And just to add on that, Blake, once you join the league, for example, this week, your points are included. So if you randomly watch this video, please join this league. And the other thing is, we're talking about these points, and if you're starting Fantasy Premier League for the first time and don't expect that these scores are the norm, I think to have the 2 most popular players score 20 and 17 points is a rarity. So they're big hitters, but these high scores aren't the norm. So we'll start seeing those numbers go down shortly.
Yeah, any score over 100. Don't get too many of those in a season usually. But all the best to you, Scott. If you can score 115 every week, you're going very well, mate.
Well done, Scott.
Well done, Scott. I'll also post the league code on the Twitter when I post this video as well. So we've gone across to our total transfers in and transfers out. So this was as of yesterday when we went to record this show. Pogba, he was at 7.5 starting the season. He's the most transferred in player. Obviously putting up a big score there. Fernandez, 2nd total. I'm guessing a lot of people have taken a hit to try and get him in because he's not very cheap. There's no, just the way my team's structured, I'd have to take a hit if I was looking at getting him in. So I put up a Twitter poll during the week as well to see what people are doing in terms of their transfers this week, and 60% of people said they weren't doing any transfers, and then it flipped the other way. We had about 20% of people saying they were using a wild card or taking a hit to fix up their teams. So yeah, there's a lot of happy managers at the moment, but a lot of people like myself that looking for a better week this week. So we've got, sorry, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, so with these transfers, Blake, so this is how the prices change in the game. So as you can see that on the left there, the players that obviously scored well and people are transferring them in. Once people do that and in numbers, that's how the prices change. So if there's a player that you like and they continue to score, the idea is you try and get them in before their price continues to rise. So, for example, with Fernandez, obviously we've both bypassed him, but by the time we potentially try and trade him in, we better be careful that he's not a lot more expensive. So the prices change 0.1 at a time, whether going up or down. And just so you know, so Australian Eastern Time, obviously here in Australia at 11:30 a.m. That's when the prices change. So for my sake, I look at FPL status on Twitter, and I can see then. I normally check around lunchtime and see what has happened. So, for example, Pogba's already 7.6. Fernandez is 12.1 now. I wouldn't be surprised if he'll continue to rise over the next week, especially if he scores well again this week. Lukaku's one that he's being transferred a lot already, hasn't played a minute yet for Chelsea. And 11.5, especially if he comes on plays this weekend and scores, he'll be transferred in by a lot of people. So it's all about team values. At the start of the season, obviously start with 100 million, and then 0.1 might not sound like much, but then if you add it up over all these weeks that we're playing this game, obviously 38 game weeks, by the middle of the season or game week 30, there's a big difference in your team value. If it's sometimes at that stage, there's some people who are hanging around the 102 million. There's some people with 110 million in the bank to choose. So that's how, if you try to attack the team value, you can pay dividends late in the season.
Yeah, with Lukaku, the Chelsea put out a new statement early in the week saying that they were preparing him for this game week. So a lot of people have jumped on early there in preparation of that. I'm hoping he doesn't actually come on early and have it starts for my personal team. On the transfers outside, a lot of people started with Harry Kane, surprisingly, and he didn't play, obviously expecting to move from Tottenham to Man City shortly. Obviously hasn't transferred out at the time of this recording. So people are getting him out of their side as an expensive forward. I dare say a lot of people would be moving Kane to Lukaku with his value. Maddison got a bit of a knock, and like I said earlier, has only played half the game, so he's highly transferred out as well. The surprising one for me on the transferred out is Grealish. He played a fair portion of the game and had his opportunity, so I was surprised to see how many people have transferred him out.
Yeah, I think almost everyone on that page on that right hand side will be players that perhaps people just reacting to the first game week, but perhaps not Kane. Maybe that was a mistake, but the others, I think, maybe Ian Archer as well, but especially Grealish, Saka, and Maddison, I think they're players that people will be looking at in the weeks to come. And if they do go down in price a bit, they'll be even more enticing. So, yeah, Grealish with Man City's depth, I think, is a player that is definitely worth watching. And if his price maybe decreases a bit, yeah, it's going to make it even easier to get him soon.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what we're about to discuss, Clinton, because we're going to talk about our watch list now. Our watch list being players that we've got our eye on. So across the board for upcoming game weeks, we've selected some goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and forwards who we've got our eye on and potentially could be making their way into our teams in the near future. So do you want to mention some of your players there, Clinton?
Yeah, well, I guess first of all, due to technical issues yesterday, that's why my name's on the right-hand side of the page and yours is on the left. And the other thing is, if you think there's a player that's missing, it's because they're in our team already. So these are players that aren't in our team, and they're players that we're definitely thinking about transferring in the near future. So let's maybe start with the ones in the middle who we both agree on. I think Raya is the goalie at Brentford, and obviously they scored the clean sheet against Arsenal, but only a couple of days ago they did sign another goalkeeper. So the question will be if I don't know a lot about him and whether or not he'll replace Raya. So it's someone to keep your eye on who that actually is going to be in goals for Brentford. So that's from a goalkeeper point of view. Shaw is an obvious one to be there because a lot of people have him, and it's one to watch, especially if Man United are able to start keeping clean sheets and he can score down the other end as well. Fernandez, obviously self-explanatory, KDB. So there's players there that we both agree on who are worth watching. And as I said earlier, I'm likely to potentially wildcard after game week 3. And these are the players that definitely I'll be watching over the next 2 weeks to see if they squeeze into my team. And obviously, Calvert-Lewin was one that went to Euros and was doubt whether he's going to be playing game week 1, but he looked really good for Everton. So there's players there that we're watching for sure.
Yeah, surprising to see Kevin De Bruyne take the field. They said early in the week that he was injured and pretty much that he wasn't going to play. And then after they conceded, they put him on. So it was actually surprising to see him even listed on the team sheet, let alone play minutes.
You'll learn, Blake, that sometimes the managers they don't tell the truth all the time. So don't take every word as truth. The other one is Son. Obviously, I think it's worth mentioning that. I think with the tough first game week and still scoring, Tottenham now have great fixtures. So there's definitely players in that middle page, especially that I wish were a part of the team, but you can't have everyone. So they're players that we're watching.
Yeah, from the Tottenham side of things, I've got their goalkeeper listed on my watch list. Because they held a clean sheet against Man City, and now they've got good fixtures. And you've got Reguilon as well as a defender. That defensively with good fixtures, if they can keep clean sheets, more and more managers are going to start selecting Tottenham players. Another player I actually like the look of from Arsenal is Tierney. He created the most opportunities of any player for the whole game week. I believe he had created 6 opportunities, but with having no striker there, they just weren't able to convert. And so I've got my eye on him for future game weeks. I believe game week 4, their fixtures start to open up a bit. If they can get a striker back, just either of them, he will start scoring some points if they are able to keep a clean sheet and he keeps providing those opportunities. Someone that's in your squad that's not in mine was Ben Rama. He looked very good attacking wise as well. So he's on my watch list for future weeks. And I've also got Amati. So I believe he scored 6 or 7 points in the end, Clinton, who was originally in your team.
He did score 6, and I think the issue is that they just signed another defender out, and the reviews of the game were mixed. So although he did score well and obviously kept the clean sheet, I think his days are numbered in the starting 11. So you can watch him as much as you want, but I'm not convinced he'll be a long-term pick. So I think I'll be surprised if he remains on your watch list for longer than a couple of weeks.
We'll see. And Ings, I was very happy seeing Ings not score, and then 7 minutes into overtime, he put a penalty through. So, so he's also on my watch list going forward. But I believe he could be interrupted by Ollie Watkins. Watkins could potentially be an option later on down the track. I'll want to see another Aston Villa game before I start investing in them.
So if you from my side, Blake. So I think obviously, as I said, you play around with your team a lot in the weeks leading up, and there was a time there for a couple of weeks I was set on having Schmeichel as my goalkeeper, but then there was obviously a few different players injured and so on, and around the league, and I sort of went off Leicester's defence, but I think they were pretty impressive in the first game week. So I'm definitely watching Schmeichel and Pereira. Pereira is a player that has been in the league now for a couple of years. He was scoring a lot of fantasy points there a couple of years ago. He had a wretched run with injuries last year. So I think he's one to definitely watch from not only a clean sheet point of view, but also scoring. And Creswell is a player that he does that also. But I think the thing that turned me off a little bit was the fact that his age, and he's had a bit of injuries on and off the last couple of years. So I didn't want to start with him, but I think I'll see how they go next couple of weeks. West Ham, if there's anyone that I'll get in the back line for West Ham, it'll be him. Reguilon we've mentioned, I think he's also attacking defender for Tottenham. Duffy's an interesting one. So obviously I started with Veltman and he didn't play. And then Duffy is a very experienced defender who, I'm not sure if he played a lot at all last year, but he 4.0 he started and reports are that he was best on for Brighton. So if he's able to keep his spot in the team, if I'm wildcarding in game week 3, potentially he can be my bench defender. So I think I'd rather him over, if he does stay in the team, it's a big if, but over Amati and over Simicast, who I think by that stage will be replaced by Robertson. So just watching on Duffy, and if he keeps his spot on the team, he's one that I might be getting on my defender bench. Midfield, Sarr was very impressive for Watford. He's a player that I liked and had in my team 2 years ago. Obviously played well in the championship last year. So one that I was sort of jealous that I didn't start with, but I ended up choosing Ben Rama over him. So I'm not regretting that decision, but Sarr's definitely one I'm watching. Greenwood, I wasn't so convinced that how they're all going to structure up front for Man United, but he obviously was super impressive, and I think he's one that should be, if you're going to pounce on him, potentially it's now, because there's a couple of players coming back from injury, and how they'll structure up then we'll see, but he's one that'll potentially score really well the next couple of weeks. Just Grealish and Havertz, just players that I'm watching and just sort of waiting to see how it's going to unfold in their teams respectively. Obviously, I've already mentioned about Lukaku, and then how Man City will structure up. So they're just on the watch list, but because they're potentially really good scorers if everything clicks for them. And Bamford for Leeds, I think he was one that, similar to Schmeichel, I had him on the team for a while there in the pre-season, but then with a bit of a tough run early, he's one that potentially I might get in about a month's time, or potentially even wild card, because Leicester are normally a high-scoring team, and they love to attack it at all times. Obviously, they found it tough versus United, but he just loves scoring goals, and he's their man. So he's one to watch for me as well.
Yeah, I've got Dallas, the Leeds, and who scored an assist that game, so I was pretty happy with that. I like Leeds' attacking assets going forward. Defensively, they didn't look too strong against Man United. I think you've covered it well there, Clinton. We'll move across to this week's game weeks with our predictions of what we think is going to occur. If you want to touch on the Liverpool-Burnley game and your prediction for that game.
Yeah, I think obviously Liverpool started well last week, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, like home ground, I think the home ground advantage can't be underestimated now. Obviously, last year with no crowds and so on, some teams found it. Obviously, I think as a player you would struggle with the atmosphere, and I think now with the crowds back, it's going to really lift home teams. So back at Liverpool, I think they'll score really well, and Burnley traditionally do go pretty well versus Liverpool. So I think they'll bang in 3, but I'm just hoping for another clean sheet more than anything.
Yeah, with Trent, but I don't have Simicast, which is a potential option for me going forward as well. Next game, we'll go across to Aston Villa, Newcastle. We've both got Aston Villa to win, even though they got defeated last week. Pretty similar scoreline. What do you think?
Hopefully Ings going to redeem himself. Obviously, got one strong goal very late. So I think, once again, I'm backing in a home crowd to lift them, and hopefully they can play better. And I'm hoping that he can score well. And Newcastle, though, as you mentioned, were pretty impressive last week, so it won't be easy, but I'm hoping Danny Ings can go well.
Yeah, so Crystal Palace didn't show much last week against Chelsea, so we've both put them down for a draw against Brentford. Crystal Palace at home, hopefully will just put up a better effort than what they did last week. And yeah, hopefully it's a high-scoring game and not a 0-0 draw.
I think the exciting part of that game is that Brentford was so good at home versus Arsenal. Now it's a real test for them to go away now, and Crystal Palace will, as you said, will be looking for redemption after last week. So I think Brentford will come in full of confidence. So I'm hoping there's some goals, and Tony especially.
Yeah, Brentford did look very strong defensively, so would not be surprised if it was close to a 0-0 draw there. Leeds and Everton, this will be a very interesting matchup after what they put out last week, Leeds. I expect them to perform well at home, so I've got them to beat Everton, but you've gone with the draw.
Yeah, Everton, as I said, I think new manager, I think they're trying to work things out. So maybe I think they'll be focusing more, although they did, I think they're playing into the favour of Dominic Calvert-Lewin by just bombing in high for him to use his head. So, but I think defensively they'll structure up better, and Leeds will come out all guns blazing at home. So it could very well be 3-3, but I thought it'd be a bit lower scoring. So
yeah, I saw James Rodriguez isn't playing either, so that might dampen Everton a bit. Man City, we both expect them to beat Norwich after Liverpool destroyed them last week. I've only got them to win 3-0. I thought they looked pretty almost lethargic in the second half against Tottenham. They had all the attacking play for the first 15 minutes, and then after that, they looked a bit tired out there.
Plain and simply, I think they're the best team still. But they'd be extremely disappointed with the last game. I'm not sure exactly how they'll structure up. I hope Mahrez plays for one, and I hope that my defenders do as well. And I think they'll be looking to score and score heavily. So I'm expecting a bounce back with lots of goals.
Yeah, I think that they'll play KDB from the start this week. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up for a start. Brighton versus Watford. Watford were very impressive last week. So I've got them to win. You've got the draw. Hopefully Sarr can put up another strong performance and score a goal. I didn't catch much of the Brighton game, but I didn't like the fact that they conceded within the first 2 minutes. And this game plays a fair role for my team, which I'll explain shortly.
Yeah, I think Brighton, obviously they conceded that goal and quite easily could have been a foul. So only conceded the one last week, and I think at home, once again, they're traditionally pretty strong defensively. So I'm not expecting a high scoring game. Could easily be 0-0, but I thought start of the year, everyone's enjoying the summer over there, a bit more free flowing. So 1-1 for me.
And Southampton, you've only got Man United to beat them by 1 goal after the performance Man United put up last week. Why do you say that?
Well, there's a part of me that thinks I want this to happen for my fantasy team, but also the fact that once again, Southampton at home, they need to show something this game. Yes, United are coming in all guns blazing, but I'm just predicting, as you can see on the left hand, my scores. I think majority there, I'm sort of backing in the home team to perform pretty well, besides Arsenal. But yeah, I just think Southampton, it's a type of game that they'll want to perform well. First game of the season at home in front of the fans, and yes, United will. Well, in saying that, I think for the first half an hour last week, they were initially finding things tricky, and then all of a sudden it was just Leeds just went to water and they conceded a lot. So I'm expecting Southampton to be a tougher defence. So there's not a lot of faith in that. It could easily be similar to the Man City score, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think you're just hoping Shaw concedes another goal.
Well,
and,
yeah, that's yeah.
And Bruno doesn't score another hat trick.
As I said, I'm basing that on a bit of hope for my team.
I like your thinking. That's all right. We're expecting a low-scoring game for Wolves and Spurs. You've got no goals to be scored. Yeah, I've got Spurs to win by 1.
Yeah, I think Wolves are once again a good defensive team, and obviously Son scored that winner against City. But besides Son, they counter-attacked versus City this time against Wolves. I'm backing a low-scoring game here. Maximum 2 goals for me, and I think I'll back in the fact that it's going to be a tough, tight game. So we'll see what happens.
Now the next game, I reckon, surely Chelsea beat Arsenal by more than 1 goal. Are you just banking on the fact it's a home game again?
Well, there's a part of me about teams that lost the first week, but especially going to their home ground. Just move my head there. I think they'll need to respond, and the manager's under a lot of pressure. Chelsea are a good team. It could easily be 4-0 Chelsea, but I'm expecting Arsenal to score in the first half. Now, I can already see in my mind that Lukaku starts the bench, whether or not they're down or not, but he'll come on about the 70th minute and they'll win. I can just see it happening where Arsenal score, the crowd's up and about, a bit more optimism about Arsenal, then Chelsea will find a way to win, and I think Lukaku will have a say in that.
Watching Arsenal last week, I can't see where the goal is going to come from, to be honest.
Well, they had the 2 most expensive forwards out, which is a good reason.
Yeah, I don't, from what I'm seeing on the Twitter, I don't think they're playing again this week.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully Smith Rowe, although you'll see he's on my bench, but I'm hoping he goes all right.
A lot of people will be praying for Ben White to just charge down from the back line and score a goal, I think, after his performance last week.
Can I just add one more thing with Ben White? He's a top player with the price changes. Obviously, he was reasonably well selected at 4.5. Arsenal obviously lost to Brentford. They've got 2 tough games next 2 weeks. He's a type of player that will go down in price. I think maybe as low as 4.3 after Arsenal probably lose next 2 weeks. He's definitely a type of player that I'll be eyeing off in a couple of weeks because nothing's changed. I think he's locked in Arsenal's defence. They're normally a good defensive team. They obviously start off slow and will start off slow the next 2 weeks. So he's a type of player I'll be eyeing off to get in, whereas a lot of people will be selling him. So, although he wasn't on my watch list, he's someone that potentially will be coming to my team.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money on him, so I can't see them benching him anytime soon. And Arsenal's fixtures do open up after game week 4, like I said previously, in terms of Tierney. So, I'll be holding him through it. And the final match of the round, I've got Leicester beating West Ham at West Ham's home ground. I thought Leicester last week just looked very dangerous. They were playing through Barnes a lot, and Vardy's goal was sensational. I expect him to score again. But in saying that, West Ham were also very impressive in the second half. So you've got a draw there?
Yeah, I think these 2 teams are probably arguably maybe anywhere between 5th, 6th, 7th in terms of what I think will happen at the end of the year. So they're both good teams. I think, Leicester are pretty strong defensively, and both teams will have their work cut out to try and score first of all. But also, I think it'll be maybe a tactical battle, and I'm backing there to be a pretty low-scoring game, but a good game to watch.
Yeah, that very well could be the game of the round. We'll look forward to watching that one on Tuesday. So we'll go to now my team and what I'm planning on doing for this game week, which is nothing at this stage. I've got Maddison there with a flag on him. He received a knock halfway through the game, but I still expect him to play. Looked just like he had a bit of a sore back, and he played for a fair few minutes still after receiving the knock, so I expect him to get up for this game week. And even if he doesn't play, I've got Dallas there as a backup, who I expect to be creating opportunities against Everton. I'm sticking with my Chelsea duo in Havertz and Chilwell. Again, if they play, I expect them to be in the points. And I've got Ayling there on the bench as a backup. I am choosing the goalkeeper from Watford, Backman, ahead of Sanchez, because I expect Watford to beat Brighton. So, yeah, probably a lot of people will still have Sanchez on the pitch this week if they're not trading him out, but I'm benching him. Other than that, I don't really think there's too many moves to make. Some, like you already mentioned, a fair few people will be moving on White early after what Arsenal's defence put up. But I'd like to hold him through it, watch one more game week, and see what happens after there. I expect my team to bounce back. Obviously, not having Bruno could hurt again, but I think my team's quite well priced across the field. I've got Vardy there as my expensive forward, and he will eventually, hopefully, become Lukaku or Kane in about 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Looks good, Blake. I think it's worth emphasising now that a lot of people aren't making any transfers, and the reason why is because you can roll one over. So then going into game week 3, you can have 2 free transfers, and that saves you then potentially there might be people out there making a transfer this week, and then going into next week, there might be something that rise that you need to make 2. That's where you'll lose that -4 points to make 2 transfers. So the wise thing is that majority of people, once they set up their initial team, there might be some disappointments, but the advice is to hold on to that transfer, save it for another week. Hopefully that some players that may be disappointed in game week 1 redeem themselves, and then you've got some more data, if you want to call it that, to make a better decision for the next game week.
Yeah, I'm happy with a lot of my players in the team. My defenders provide a lot of attacking options. They just obviously didn't get the points in the first round, so hopefully they'll bounce back this week. Let's flick across to your team. Are you the same, and you're not going to make any moves this week?
Yeah, definitely no transfers. I think, as I said, yes, there's a few things that let me down in terms of my bench boost last week, but I'm really happy with how my team looks. Martinez was one that although he's selected in a lot of teams overall, a lot of the teams on Twitter, a lot of the teams I see on YouTube don't have him. So I'm really hoping that they can respond and keep a clean sheet for my sake this week. And then also, yeah, Liverpool have a great fixture, so do Man City. So fingers crossed that all those City players play, and I can potentially have a bit of a differential in the fact that I've got 2 Man City defenders when a lot of the people either have 1 or no Man City players. So that's my big sort of differential going into this week. Barnes, I'm hoping to respond. Yeah, obviously happy with the forward line there and backing them in to score well. I think my biggest thing is, yes, I spread the funds a bit last week, and now my biggest dilemma is the fact that Beltman's not playing, so that's no worries. Smith Rowe, I'm happily to bench versus Chelsea, but then Ben Rama is the one that obviously scored a lot of points game week 1. It is a tough fixture against Leicester. So looking at that team, I'm backing in a Liverpool clean sheet. So I'm sort of banking on 6 points minimum for Simicast. So I don't want to bench him. And then between Barnes, Tony, and Ben Rama are the 3. Like Mahrez, I've paid 9 million for. I've paid for him to play these first 3 game weeks. So I need to back him in. So Barnes, very similar, although he's a bit cheaper. He's a very important player for Leicester, and I think if they're going to score, I'm hoping he can be a part of it this week. So it's on paper, I'm very happy with the team, but I sort of wish there was a way I could fit Ben Rama in. But that's the dilemmas you face when you try and worry about bench boost. And when people bench boost late in the season, whether it be the game week before, the game week after, they'll have more than one selection dilemma because there's players that you want to play. So, yeah, Ben Rama I was happy with his points, and now I'm wanting to play him. So it's a good thing, not a bad thing. I just hope I can pull the right rein and that potentially he's the one that doesn't score out of the fact that I'm playing Antonio and Barnes. So I'm happy with my team, and yeah, the bench boost, although it didn't necessarily pay off. I'm hoping it does this week. So happy with the team.
And you're holding on to development, because even if you changed him to another player now, you wouldn't put him on for anyone that's on the pitch anyway.
It's not going to affect my starting team, and
yeah,
it allows me to have two free transfers next week. And as I said, I'm likely to wildcard after game week 3. So even if, it's a relevant third bench player, so that doesn't mean much to me unless randomly there's 3 people that don't front up for me, and then I'm faced with a donut. So
I saw Robertson was back in training for Liverpool, but I don't expect him to take Simicas's spot straight away. It'll probably be after the international break in a couple of weeks. But yeah,
when he's fit, he will, because he's one of the best players in the world. But I think whether or not, apparently he's jogging laps. So I think it's whether or not it's next week or after international break. So hopefully Simicas can stay there for this week and next.
Yeah, if Liverpool and Man City both keep a clean sheet, there's a quarter of your points just there. So hopefully that'll go well for you, Clinton.
Captaincy wise, I think you kept on Salah as well. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah.
The majority of people are. There is a small part of me that is lean towards the fact that a lot of people are. Burnley do go okay against Liverpool. Mahrez is a player that when you least expect him to, he'll just kick 3 goals. So there's a part of me that wants to, but I'm not brave enough yet. You'll shake your head, but firstly, it needs to start. It needs to start, but I think this is the type of game that he'll just kick 3 goals, and people kick themselves that they don't have him in their team. It's like, well, yeah. So before last week, I was actually contemplating like people locking their captaincy weeks in advance, and looking at the fixtures. This is the reason why I had him on the team first of all. And going into this game week, if Liverpool didn't go so well last week and Salah blanked, Mahrez was a captaincy candidate for me. So as much as it's weird to think, when he scores 3 goals, Blake, you say, why didn't you captain him? So
I know what you're saying, but it's
not going to happen. But
it'd be very risky. He could come on for 10 minutes, and there's all and Salah could destroy Burnley. Too risky.
There's plenty of coulds, but I think they're the decisions when they come off. That's the difference between people coming first and 100,000. So that's
not first or last.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll wrap up our show for this evening. Hopefully this has gone better than last weekend, last night even, after we tried to get the show up and running yesterday, but it didn't quite pay off for us. So it's still a work in progress. So hopefully this will be uploaded shortly. And so like always, just hit the like and subscribe button to our YouTube channel, and you can stay up to date with our quality content that we got coming through.
Absolutely. It's all quality, Blake, and this is just a bit of fun for us to do. I think, as you just said, if you're randomly watching this, what will really assist us if you know people that participate in FPL and they're looking for just something random to watch throughout the week. Hopefully they can find us. Obviously, this is Friday night now as we record. Hopefully, in the weeks to come, we can record on a Thursday night. But please let other people know about us. Join the league, and this is obviously the start with FPL. Obviously, we're doing other sports down the track. So that's the whole idea about community. And then next week, potentially, we can discuss a bit more about the chips that are in the play. I've already destroyed one of mine, but hopefully week by week, we can slowly get a bit more people interested in the game, and looking forward to other sports we'll do down the track. Yeah,
I'm excited for Big Bash Supercoach coming up, especially if my FPL team doesn't go well this week. It better bounce back.
It's a long season, Blake. Some of the best players in the game, and you'll learn this stuff. Like some people can start 4 million after the first month and then still finish in the top 5,000. So all it takes is making strong decisions, not panicking. And I think we mentioned it already, but don't panic the trades. Really think about it. It's a long season. Don't think you have to win it in the first month, and just enjoy it. I think if you do want to trade, just go for it. But as long as you enjoy it, it's a good game to play, and it's a great way to watch the English Premier League.
Yeah, I heard last week that from the people that finished the top 20, their average after game week 1, their ranking was 650,000. So you're about that mark. So yeah,
I'm coming for it.
It's all good. All right, mate. It's been a pleasure. We'll talk with you soon.
Great stuff, Blake. You're doing a good job.
Thanks. Well, good luck for this game week.